AITA for pointing out to my wife that my mother will never be her parent and she needs to stop.
My mom, 64, is polite and in general keeps a distance away from my wife, 26. I know my wife has trouble with social interaction and they got off on a horrible start. My wife, I am going to call her Lily, was in foster care and never had a parental figure, and she went hard into trying to become my mom's kid. I think it would have happened if my wife let the relationship grow naturally, but she didn't take any of my warnings and bulldozed what my mom wanted. A few examples: she kept calling her mom even after she told her multiple times to call her by her name. Lily would make her uncomfortable, especially when she would ask my mom very personal question or go way too deep. I have talked to her so many times but she doesn't stop. The family has taken their concerns with me also and have straight up told her to stop.
The big turning point was when my mom and her daughters, my sisters, went to visit deceased family member. It's a tradition between the three of them. Well, Lily heard about it and went. It went very poorly and my sisters dislike Lily now also. We are invited to events and are still in the family, but the women of the family keep their distance. There is a girls' trip around Christmas and she wasn't invited. This made my wife very upset and was ranting. I had enough when Lily said she was her kid. I snapped and told her my mother will never be her mom and you need to stop. She ended up crying and now I feel guilty. I just don't know how to get it through her head that she needs to stop. I've talked with her so many times and she is already in therapy.
Edit: I'm getting a lot of comment. I will try to read them all and answer as much as I can. I probably won't see a questions if there isn't info in the first line. Also, I have a lot of comments, so if you do have a question it may have been answered already, please check comments before asking.
I see both sides of the story here. I feel so sad for your wife but also for your family. I can imagine your wife thinking for a long while that once she gets married she finally have parents. It was her last chance to get some, in her mind I'm sure. Unfortunately, that's not always how life works and I don't think you were the off for saying what you said. It's good that you did. She can finally come to the realization that they're never going to accept her as their own. Hopefully she'll stop trying so hard. My heart goes out to her though. Maybe she should see a therapist, to help her process her childhood grief. AITA, AmITA.
Sure does sound like the therapy isn't at all working, TBH. I'm sure you could have been gentler to her in telling her what you did, but I'm still going NTA. It sounds like she has been warned and told so many times. At what point does she take responsibility for her actions?
Hasn't this been posted before?
NTA. Your family are enforcing boundaries. Lily can't or won't behave appropriately towards them. So your family members are minimizing her opportunities to behave inappropriately. I do feel for Lily because it must hurt a lot to have never had that kind of relationship. To see it up close and still not be able to have it. But that doesn't mean she gets to trample people's boundaries. It sounds like you've all tried to be patient about it. What you said will have hurt. But only because she hasn't accepted what's already been said to her several times by several people. If she'd been willing to respect what she was told before, what you said wouldn't have needed saying. NTA. I have a lot of sympathy for kids who grow up in the system, as I did. That being said, as adults it is our responsibility to heal from our trauma so other people don't have to heal from us. Your wife's issues with boundaries and inability to respect someone else's requests is extremely problematic and indicative that she doesn't just want a mother. She wants an emotional crutch. Might I suggest another approach? I think a talk between your mom, yourself, and your wife where your mother lays out her boundaries, explains why she has them, and then why your wife's behavior has enforced those boundaries is necessary. It seems like your wife is getting this information in pieces. And while that should be enough, I think everyone needs to meet this head on. Clearly what y'all are doing isn't enough. Your wife needs to be told no very clearly and up front, and be told the consequences if she continues to press the issue. I would suggest possibly looking into another therapist. in addition to the one she currently sees, who specializes in abandonment issues, childhood PTSD, and obsessive relationships. If your wife continues on this path, I see negative effects on your relationship with your family. Giving your wife clearly feedback and clear objectives will help with this. I feel like slight NTA. Lily is slightly TA. I'm really curious how this was all handled when you two were dating and before she officially became a family member. If she is so desperate for a loving family, which hey, I understand that, then I feel like she should have realized earlier on that maybe marrying into your family wasn't the right fit. OFC, the priority should be fit with a partner. But sometimes you're marrying into a family, too. She can have my mill, I sure don't want her. Your wife needs professional help so she can deal with her traumatic childhood. You need professional help so you can learn to be a supportive husband yet still maintain healthy boundaries. Your mother and sisters should realize it's possible to set limits yet practice kindness at the same time. Please don't have children with her yet. That's another several layers of trauma. NTA. InTA, and I can relate to this so much. My brother's ex did this. When they got engaged, she started to call our mom mom and our stepdad dad. We didn't even call him dad. She would be out with us at a restaurant and calling them mom and dad, and it was so awkward. My mom told her she didn't give birth to her or adopt her, so she is not her mother. She will be her mother-in-law, but to use her first name. She would introduce herself as my mom's daughter, and my mom hated this. I was talking with a friend once and she came up and outright introduced herself as my sister. My friend, who I hadn't seen in a while but had known for years, looked confused as she knows my baby sister is my only sister. I turned to her and just said, "Listen up, crazy. My mom isn't your mom, my stepdad isn't your dad, and I'm sure as hell not your sister. You might be marrying my brother and will be an in-law, but stop trying to force a relationship or bond that isn't there." Eventually she quit it, but it only really stopped when they split. You need to be firm on this. No matter what her trauma is, she doesn't get to harass others and out that on them. In Ta, your family set boundaries and she trampled over them. NTA. But it sounds like she needs more intensive therapy. Her past trauma is not an excuse for making other people uncomfortable. Your family has tried to enforce boundaries, but she steps over the line again and again. NTA. Your family put up boundaries. You told her repeatedly about the boundaries. Your family repeatedly told her their boundaries and that she's overstepping. It sucks that she was raised in the foster system and that she has no family of her own. But as you said, she tried to create a bond too quickly and forcefully. And because of that, the opposite of what she wanted has happened. Your wife needs therapy ASAP. Her behavior is not normal and needs to be addressed and resolved. This is not good for herself, for you both as a couple, for your mom, and for the extended family. If she don't look for help, I believe this will tear your relationship. NTA. Edit. Didn't see that she is already in therapy. I don't know for how long, but doesn't seem to be working. She seems to have such big unresolved problems. Maybe it will take some time. I get her past is hard, but her behavior is creepy and kinda of stalkerish. I have read some of your comments on posts, and there isn't really anything you can do if she isn't willing to do a joint session with you. I feel she is lying to her therapist, telling a one-sided story, or leaving it out altogether. It might be time for you to put up the boundaries with her and your family. Maybe stop going to things for a while. I know that isn't going to be what you want or probably your family, but she isn't respecting their boundaries, so she shouldn't go around them until she learns to do so. Info. Stop what? Exactly? What were the nature of the personal questions? At what point in yours and their relationship did she start calling her that? What did your mother and family do to welcome her into the family? Do you even actually love your wife? I think the lack of compassion shown by your family does very much say a lot. They don't have to like everything Lily does. But if they're not willing to understand why Lily would be behaving this way, I can see how the more she tries, the worse she'll feel and the more she'll try. Whether or not you're an asshole isn't really the question here. But I would say definitively on what you've said alone, it genuinely feels that way to me. The level of judgment on Lily not being enough of doing well enough in therapy over the most tepid examples of boundary breaking after a traumatic growth process is degrading and unfair. Your language says a lot about how you feel about her. Stop wasting her time if you aren't actually going to love her. I'm sorry that Lily might be too much for you. But it doesn't make her too much. It makes her somebody who is hurting and needs love because humans require love. I'm so sorry for you both. As someone who has had their own parental attachment issues, therapy can take a long time. These are deep wounds that can take years to heal enough to even recognize they are there. It took me maybe 8 years of therapy to recognize that I was being delusional because there was so much shame and self-hatred that clouded my vision. I was scared to look at the root and didn't even realize I was doing that because Lord knows I wanted to overcome it. All that said, you are NTA. You aren't responsible for her trauma or how she reacts to it. Info. How long has this been going on? If she has been pushing and ignoring boundaries and requests for years versus months, that's important context. I read this as a long-term problem. So NTA. I'm seeing a lot of the comments about therapy and OP. Most therapists won't see both you and your wife as a couple and also see her as an individual. It's a break of ethics since her therapist would be partial to your wife in couples therapy. I really highly recommend going to a couples counselor who doesn't know either of you off the bat, as it gives them a chance to know you at the same time. NTA. Sounds like she was given plenty of polite opportunities to accept your mother's boundaries and repeatedly stomped all over them. Everyone has a limit before they snap, and it sounds like you tolerated this for a long time before finally having enough.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.